Carry on with John's Gospel. In John 4, from 46. A few limitations with this translation, but the rest of it works well. John 4:46. Then Jesus went back to Cana in Galilee, where he had turned the water into wine. A government official was there whose son was ill in Capernaum. When he heard that Jesus had come from Judea in Galilee, he went to him and asked him to go to Capernaum and heal his son, who was about to die. And Jesus said to him, "None of you will ever believe unless you see miracles and wonders." "Sir," replied the official, "come with me before my child dies." And Jesus said to him, "Go, your son will live." And the man believed Jesus' words and went. On his way home, his servants met him with the news, "Your boy is going to live." And he asked them what time it was when his son got better. And they answered, "It was 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon when the fever left him." Then the father remembered that it was at that very hour when Jesus had told him, "Your son will live." So he and all his family believed. This was the second miracle that Jesus performed after coming from Judea in Galilee. And so this is very much tied in with the story that we did a few weeks ago of the turning water into wine. In fact, as John points out, it's in the same place. And he tells us in the same place because he wants to link the two things together. And throughout John's Gospel, we get a continual sort of pile driver feel of Jesus doing miracles to demonstrate that he is the Son of God. The divinity of Jesus and his ability to break in with supernatural power. And without saying anything else this morning, it's worth just reinforcing that. You might say, well, why are we going to say that again? Well, if John thinks we need to say it again, we need to say it again. Because it's so easy to get lost in the bushes of all these miracle stories. I think when we were doing the water into wine, it's so easy to start talking about how many jars there were, how much water there was, why this happened, what his mother said, what he said. It's all good stuff, but without a lot of wine, it doesn't work, does it? This week we were looking at in midweek we were looking at the passage where the man is let down through the roof, and Jesus heals him. And it's easy to talk about how important the men were that brought him along and what a mess it was having a hole in the roof and how we need to be accessible to Jesus. But unless Jesus heals him, the story's not going to get in the Bible, is it? Unless we have the key things, unless we have the central thing, the central move, the central crossing the gain line. Can you imagine somebody telling the story? They broke the roof down and they put him down there. And then at the end they took him home again. I mean, it's just a story about disabled access, isn't it? And so when we come to this is about the healing of this lad who was about to die. And it's about the fact that Jesus makes that difference to that man's life. Yes, in man's faith, we need to talk about faith. We're going to talk about faith this morning. But I don't want to lose the fact that in the middle we are called to be with the Lord in our everyday lives, who is a miraculous God, who does supernatural things, who does not just sort of give us a placebo effect to life, does not just give us a nice gloss on things. And we don't come here to study the Bible just because we're interested in the Galilean attitude to Jesus or how far it was from Capernaum to Cana. It's good stuff. But, I mean, for instance, I was thinking when I read this, I don't know if you've ever read this before, but when it says, and when the man was on the way home, it says, and he was met by his servants who said he got well, and he says, and he inquired from them exactly what time it was. It reminded me of Herod talking to the wise men, and he asked them exactly when it was that the star would appear. It's exactly the same. That's very interesting stuff. It's not what it's about. You see, it's easy to get lost in the bushes. But we are here in our praise and our worship, in our hearing of the word, for God to do miracles amongst us. Whether they are the miracle we were talking about last week of being taught by the Lord, something we do not know, which speaks into our hearts, which is miraculous. Whether it is a touch of God, that is miraculous. Whether it is that you need forgiveness, that is miraculous. And whether it is a needing of healing of some sort or another, that is miraculous. It's just one world breaking into the other. We are that sort of people. This is the crucial thing. The rest is built around it. The rest is nothing much without it. But to access it, this man and his faith gives us a really good masterclass in faith. And John puts it in a very clear way. It teaches a lot of important things about faith. Faith is not just woolly. Faith is a very practical thing. And at the beginning it says, and this man came from Capernaum. Now it doesn't say that in the Good News Bible, but I read it from you from the actual translation. Now at Capernaum there was a royal official whose son was ill. When he heard that Jesus had come back to Galilee, he went to him. And he went to him and said to come down and restore the health of his son who was near to death. He went, that's the crucial thing, all the way from Capernaum in a day and a half's journey. He wasn't just near, he had to come. And I think this bit about coming and asking is a huge thing about faith. It was no good at him being down in Capernaum in a day and a half away down by the lake, thinking, I really believe Jesus could heal my son. That's opinion, that's not faith. Faith is I go and I ask. There is a sense of a process. In fact, we could start by saying that faith is an activity rather than an opinion. I wasn't brought up with that. I was brought up with faith was an opinion. What's important is to believe. But actually, to believe is to do. And not necessarily a physical thing. You don't have to go on a journey. It might be an emotional thing. It might be a decision. But it's to do. Jesus says, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you, sort of thing. But there's a narrative there, isn't there? Come, knock, ask. But you do come. You don't say, here's a door. You come and you knock and you ask in faith to receive. It is an activity. I come. We did the other week, didn't we? The parable of the prodigal son. And when he was in the pigs phase, he says, he came to himself and said, I will go to my father and I will say, because I believe you'll feed me. I believe that because he feeds his servants. So I believe that, and with that faith, I go. If he thought, if I go home, my father will just whip me and throw me out, he's not going to go home. He's going to make the best of the pigs, isn't he? So, but he says, I believe he will feed me. It's not, he's just sort of saying to the pigs, my father will feed me. He goes home, he goes, and he says, in fact, he doesn't get the speech made. The going is the bit, isn't it? In faith. You don't go home unless you believe you will be fed. To go and to ask, to have faith. I will go unto my father and I will say. That's not a bad thing for your personal spirituality, is it? There is that sense of, even in your subconscious, I will go and I will say. I will pray today. I will. There is an approach. And in that coming, there is an intention. It's a bit like, I remember going to a place like Blackpool, and you used to have Blackpool Rock. Remember Blackpool Rock? And in the end, it said Blackpool, didn't it? But it only says Blackpool on the end because it says Blackpool all the way through. And it's a bit like that with coming and asking. It's not just, I'm doing a bit of asking unless I've come. And when he comes all the way with his leaving his terminally ill son, all the way, that is faith. That is the asking. Well, you need to say something. What if he'd arrived, all that, and he's there before Jesus and says, what do you want? And he doesn't say anything. Well, I've just come. That doesn't work either. But unless he'd come, he wouldn't have asked. It's faith. Faith is an activity. What are you going to do with what you believe? And if you don't do anything, do you believe it? It's just a matter of opinion. When I was undergraduate at university, worked for a professor called Kitson. And in those days, the geography faculty was a big 60s tower block. They used to build universities like that in those days. And it had a lift for the great and the good, and it had stairs for people like me. And it was before all that egalitarian rubbish you get in universities now. The professor was at the top, he was called Kitson, and it was K-floor. Yes. And I was down here, and when you want to make an appointment, But I remember a couple of times, something like this, a narrative goes something like this: I need something from the prof, so I need some bit of equipment or something, but I am nobody. So I make an appointment with the secretary, which is just about one floor up, to see the professor, to ask him. I think, I might give him something, might be a good, I think I'll give him the kit. And she makes an appointment with the professor's secretary. And the professor's secretary makes an appointment with the professor, and finally it trims all the way down to me, yes, you can see him, you know, blah, 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 blah. And so finally I've got this appointment, and I've got what I want to say, you know? And I go up all these stairs to cave floor, with my little, what I want to say. Now, when I get in there, he says, yep, what do you want? I say, Prof, I need this kit. You know, I need this bit of kit. Now, I believe he's probably going to give it me, but walking up all those stairs is part of believing it. It's not a matter of me sitting in a junior common room downstairs with my little speech ready about wanting his kit, hoping, as he might do once in a fortnight, that the prof will wander through the junior common room and I can ambush it. It's going. You go. Why am I going up here? Because I believe I'll get the kit when I've asked him. To go and to do is to believe. I have faith in this. Why are you walking up here? Because I believe. Why are you walking up all these stairs? Oh, I'm going up to see the prof. He won't give it me. Well, what are you walking up there for then? You see what I mean? To believe, to have faith is an activity. Which is really encouraging because it means you can go home this week and do it rather than meditate on it. That's really good. I like somebody to catch hold of me. So anyway, he came and he went and he asked him. And then when he gets there, he does say it. It's absolutely no good saying, I've just come into... But what does he say? It's really direct, isn't it? Come down to Capernaum, a day and a half away, and heal my son, straight like that. You feel that people who don't have faith don't start like that. The teachers of the law, oh, Master, we know that you're a great man and you've taught this, and only people like you could come from God, and all those big, long intros you get from the Pharisees before they get to the point... He doesn't say that. He doesn't say, oh, Master, I gather that you've made lots of wine and all sort of thing. He says, please, Master, come and heal my son in Capernaum who is about to die. That's pretty direct, isn't it? And faith has got a lot to do with not beating around the bushes. It's not about, oh, it's a nice day, Lord, thank you for today. All that's good. What do you want? Now, I wasn't brought up like that. I was brought up to be polite, not say what you want. I was brought up to talk about anything except what you actually wanted, because Englishmen of my age didn't actually express themselves. And other people had to sort of work out what you wanted, you know? He just goes in there. And when Jesus challenges him about the problem with you Galileans, you just like fancy things so you'll believe, we'll come back to that in a minute, he ploughs on wonderfully. Jesus challenges him a bit like Jesus challenges his mother, don't tell me what to do, doesn't it? A bit negative. But it's a good challenge. But then he says, hurry up, Lord, because my son is about to die. What good faith, how much better a statement of faith could that be? Here is the Lord, here is the Master, putting him off ostensibly, and he doesn't argue about it, doesn't go on about it. He just says, yeah, I know all about that, but actually I'm in a hurry because he's going to die, so will you come now? That is an amazing statement of faith. Not to be put off. Just do it. You know, faith is not, as you might have thought sometimes, like an amazing laser light of sophisticated spirituality that once you finally fine-tune that bit of faith, a miracle of some sort might happen. It's not like this. The guy's just arrived with a sledgehammer. He's just saying, my son's going to die. And Jesus is saying, you Galileans are all the same, you know, you just want to see miracles. So, but actually he's going to die, so you better hurry up. I don't need any theology, I just need a miracle. I think it's an amazing story. And Jesus obviously honours that, and he loves it. He loves it to bits. Occasionally people have, not often, but perhaps once or twice, I remember being with somebody who's having a really hard time, extremists or in pain or something, and they've asked me to pray for them, and I didn't want to pray for them because I didn't believe it. I didn't have faith for what they wanted me to pray for. Perhaps it was that I thought that's not the right prayer, love. Or perhaps I thought this is not a good time. Or I'm thinking, oh great minister of faith, this is not going to work out well. And I've got it all there. I've been trained for this. You've got the theology there, haven't you? Well, I think we ought to just examine this. I think we ought to seek the Lord on this. I need a bit more guidance. I'm sure that's quite the thing to pray for. Let's just pray for blessing and peace, and not for that. And they've said, I wouldn't have said it quite like that, but I worked around it in a slightly more easygoing way. And they said the equivalent of, yeah, I know all about that. Will you just pray? And then at the end of the day, that no, it's not right, this is not right, no. Just pray. Because they got faith and I haven't. I've got the details and they haven't. And in our own lives, sometimes we are faced with a situation where we need a little miracle. Perhaps you need pardon or forgiveness or peace or a bit of guidance or some healing, for goodness sake. You just meet something. But there's lots of little things saying, oh, you can't believe that. That's perhaps not the right prayer to pray, not the right thing to ask. Perhaps you've got mixed motives. Perhaps it won't work out. Perhaps it's selfish. Perhaps, all those things. And faith says, yeah, I know you're in a mess, but just ask. And it's very good. We as a church need to pray for miracles. If we don't pray for miracles till we'll sort it out, we will never pray for miracles. That's why you need to pray, because you're not sorted out. The Bible is full of people with mixed motives, funny prayers, politically incorrect sort of requests that God honours, not because they were right, but because they just believed. That's right. He comes, he asks in our very voice. Perhaps today, perhaps this week, you could set aside all the qualifying reasons, good reasons, why you haven't believed this, why you haven't prayed for it, why you felt it would be more comfortable, if you like, to be uncomfortable and not pray. And just say, Lord, I just need this, please. And he takes the faith of this man. And he nudges the faith. You see, he says to the man, oh, you Galileans, the way the Greek is written, it's not you, it means you in the plural. You Galileans have a problem with miracles. You like miracles and signs and wonders. You like to be impressed. And that's why you believe in me. So he's immediately nudging him from believing in the miracles to believing in him. And then when the guy ploughs on, he honours that and he says, okay, go home. Your son is now getting well. Now, the man had believed that Jesus, with tremendous faith, more than I would have had. The man believes that Jesus is going to come with him. They're going to walk down. He's going to get into the room with his sick son. Jesus is going to pray a prayer, lay his hands on him, and he's going to be healed. That's a tremendous faith. But Jesus says, oh, I won't go at all. In fact, he says, we're up here, and the child's down there. Take it from me. He's healed now. Now go home. And we read, and the man believed Jesus' words. In other words, Jesus is nudging him from believing in him to do miracles to believing in him and thus in his ability to do miracles. You might say, well, that's a bit of a subtle thing, but this man could have believed in Jesus because Jesus did miracles. Jesus wants to believe that he can do him to believe he can do miracles because he believes in him. It becomes a person-sided thing. And although there's a lot of argy-bargy afterwards and the man goes down and you find that he's got to do a lot of interviews with his servants before he completely believes, it means at the end, when he does completely believe, he believes in Jesus. He doesn't, and we don't read, and all his family believed that Jesus could do miracles. We read, and all his family believed in Jesus. It becomes a relational thing, not just a results thing. Which is not to say, as you will have sometimes heard, it doesn't matter about a miracle. Take it from me, if he'd gone home to a dead son, it wouldn't have worked at all. This is not subtly moving away from miracles to just believe in Jesus. No. Jesus does miracles of all sorts. But I'm called to believe in him as the Son of God. I'm called to believe in him as the Lord and thus to believe that he does miracles. Not to believe that he does miracles and thus he is the Son of God. Finally, he goes home. He does go home. That's taken a big thing because Jesus was his man, and now he's not coming. Now he's not coming. He's not like the other guy who says, oh, you don't need to come, you can do it. No, this guy wanted him to come. And so he doesn't see this son who is healed. He doesn't know he's going home. It's a big risk, isn't it? But he goes. And perhaps faith is also not just coming, but going. Again, faith is an activity. He goes home to find the son that he hasn't seen, but is healed. Faith involves reaching out for that which we do not yet see, but which has happened. And so there is a degree of delay, isn't there? Now, delay in faith is a big thing. And delay in miracles is a big thing and often misused. But this man has a lot to say to us. He doesn't have to wait for the answer to his prayer because Jesus is not going to do it for a bit. The boy is healed at the moment Jesus speaks. What he's got to wait for is to see it. And so when we are people who believe, when we have faith, and Jesus does a miracle, the problem often is that we do not see it. We do not grasp it. We do not receive it. That guy who is let down on his pallet through the roof on the floor. Jesus heals him, and Jesus then says, get up, take up your mat and go home. I wonder how long he would have laid there thinking, oh, he's healed me. That's a really nice prayer. But I'm still lame. You know? How many people have we prayed for? How many times have we prayed for new people to come to church and they came and it was a miracle and we didn't notice and they went away again? How often have I prayed for things that I have never embraced? Now, I'm not saying in a naive way, oh, if only you could look, everything would be all right. It's not that. But I do feel that to believe is to receive. And to believe is to live in the light of what has already happened, but which you do not yet see. That is the basis of all prophecy. It's not God is going to do this. It's just that God has done it, but you haven't seen it yet. And so he went home. And he finds his son. And it's great at the end. But I tell you what, the bit going home was tough. I believed the guy to come and heal him, but hey, he's not even coming. And so we got I would just commend that story to you. Not as a cryptic New Testament story where that sort of thing happens, but in the context of a Jesus who does miraculous things. Not necessarily dramatic, but always important. Perhaps to teach you, perhaps to heal you. You may not need healing. You may not be ill. It's not all about healing. It may well be you need forgiveness or you need guidance or strength. All those are miraculous because they're all changes. God doesn't do anything, doesn't change anything. It's all miracle, with perhaps a small m or a big M, or however you want to put it. It's all supernatural intervention. And here is a great way we access that, through faith in that which we do not see, the substance, as it says in Hebrews, of things hoped for. So come and ask. Come. I will go to my Father and I will say. And say what you want, not what you think you want. Just say it. But say it to the Lord who as a loving Lord wants to give you what you need. And believe in him, and thus believe he will do these things for you. And then reach out and receive them. To finish with my professor, the thing is I didn't tell you was that with all that business, all that going upstairs to the great man, once I got to know the guy, once I knew that he was a Christian guy and a church warden, once he knew I was a Methodist local preacher and was training for the Methodist ministry, there was a much better chance I'd get the kit. In other words, I didn't think he was a good guy because he gave me the kit. He gave me the kit because he was a good guy. I want to believe that Jesus does miracles because Jesus is Jesus and thus does miracles. want to encourage you, the band's just going to come and reassemble themselves as we come to communion this morning. Again, as I've said before, one of the things about queuing up is not just a pragmatic way of receiving the elements. I come and I receive. If you kneel down at the communion rail, as I encourage you to, if you've got a little prayer that you need to ask, well, have it out with the Lord and say what you need. But have that sense in which I am coming. I'm not saying everybody who kneels at the rail this morning is asking for something. But the coming and the asking is, I will go to my Father and I will say. And I will say. Put yourself in motion. Put yourself in motion this week. That I live faith. That I grasp faith. And I receive.